It's
all
okay.
over the place.
Yeah, no, I understand, right? But yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show.
Sure.
Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, you should definitely introduce yourself.
Okay, hi there, everyone. My name is Joe, and I am an expat, right? I am an American citizen. I actually have dual nationality, right? I'll certainly get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And yeah, I grew up in the United
Yeah.
States, but as of was it 4 years ago, September of 2016, I've been living in Peru, and I've only come back twice to the United States, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, so I think what we will be talking about today is what's it like to kind of move somewhere and start anew. I guess you can say
I
a
think
new country or a different country, a different culture, and the day to day, right? And why somebody would want to do something like that, of
right.
course.
Right. Now, we were gonna go into that, but what if I don't want to?
Well, we can talk about
what?
anything that might interest you regarding the whole
No.
expat experience or the viewers.
I don't. I don't want to.
I'm
Yeah, you're what?
I'm very interested in talking everything, right?
You're. Yeah.
Talking about anything and everything because
All right.
I don't think it's an experience that anybody should,
Yeah.
you know, what's the word? Not consider, right? As a variety of options,
Right.
especially while somebody, going through the different stages in life, right? And I know from your previous guest, right, your last guest here,
Yeah.
I was talking, you could certainly relate to the stages of life,
Absolutely.
graduating college,
Mhm.
right? And I have a master's, right? Considering a PhD, right? One thing at a time.
Right.
And yeah, what do you do after that? What is,
Yeah.
or when starting your life, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which again, I also agree that that's, a terrible way to think about, you know, um, after school and stuff, right? I mean, life is an open book, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think people should really keep a lot of options that people would otherwise not think of on the table, right? There's no guidelines really here, right?
Sure.
I think
Sure.
a lot of these guidelines come from authority figures, right? Not for a bad reason necessarily, but certainly authority figures that think that life has to go in a certain sequence, and it
Yes.
doesn't. Right?
Right. That's actually
Um,
really good. That's a really good point. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
living in another country, it doesn't have to be Peru, right? Which is where I live, right? I probably should have said that, right? I live in I live in Peru.
Wow, you're giving everybody
And
the real spiel.
yeah,
Can
no,
I
I'd
can I
like
hold
people to understand.
can I
No,
okay, can I
please
give some
ask questions.
context? Okay, let's give some context. Okay, context questions.
Okay, let's go through
This
context. So
I
that was my introduction, by the way. Right?
Wow,
That
it's a
was
great introduction. It's a great. I love it. I love it. I love it.
yeah.
Okay,
That was only the first part. Now I'm ready for whatever you have to ask.
you.
Right?
I'm not gonna ask anything. I'm just gonna let you run everything now. All right, We're here to have fun. We're here to talk. This is great. It's great that we're gonna get really deep. We're gonna go down the rabbit hole. I just want to give some context to all this. Okay, I've known Joe for a really, really, really long time. Okay, we've been friends for many, many years, right? And we know each other pretty well. We've seen each other, go through quite a bit. And one of the biggest, changes to Joe's life that I had seen was, his move uh, to Peru and his starting. We went to school in America together. We went to high school together, um, uh, and in a then things changed, and Joe had decided he was going to become a dual citizen, and I didn't really know what dual citizen meant. Like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like, I kind of knew you could do it. I didn't know it was like, I kind of heard of it. I didn't really know much about it. All this stuff, but it was also, there's like some emotional things of like, like your friends, like, we grew up in the same hometown, and of course, that's why we've known each other so long, because but so it's really interesting for us to talk today. So people might notice that we have some kind of rapport, that we kind of understand each other a little bit. It's because of that. Um, I don't. If there's something I'm not bringing up, feel free to bring it up like you were about to. That's really good context that you brought up. I think like a really interesting point that I really want to get to today is I want to talk about like sequence of life that is kind of dictated to you, because as we know, like even a gap year after high school, that wasn't like a thing when in like 2008 when we had graduated. Nobody
Oh,
even
is it a thing now?
yeah, more
It is.
yeah, it's more of a thing than it used to be, and it's more
Good for
common
the
in
younger generation
yeah,
then.
yeah,
Good for them. Yeah. And it's interesting, right? That's not a and I felt right, just as you said, it's not really an American phenomenon, or it wasn't an American phenomenon.
sure,
And I think both of us have had interactions with a lot of people from other countries,
yeah,
especially Europe, right? And a lot of them take gap years,
they do. It's
right?
really common for them. They love it.
Really common,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, gap years are certainly an option. Yeah, again, going through the stages in life, right? Usually it's after high school, right?
Sure.
Before going into an undergraduate program.
So
But it could also be, right,
yeah,
after undergrad, right?
right.
Before starting work. If
And
work's even what you want to do, right?
it's whatever you want to do with your life, and it's like, but the stages of life, they go like this. But I want to clear all that, and I just want to get to one thing. Um,
Sure.
so is being an expat, is it fun? That's the number one thing I want to ask. Is it fun?
I think it's a very complicated uh, phenomenon.
Mm,
It's not an easy question to answer, right? And maybe part of the answer involves it not having to be entirely enjoyable. You know,
uh-oh.
the thing is, I feel like even if you go to a developed country, right, like or any of the developed countries in Europe or
Yeah.
anywhere for that matter, right, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, wherever, there's always going to be an element of culture shock. And I think a lot of people that whether they become an expat or not, or whether they do a study abroad, or whether they go anywhere for an extended period of time, I think there's an element where they don't want to, just get a bland experience, right? Or just they want to
Yeah,
see what the culture
memorable.
has to
Yeah,
offer.
they want something
Yeah,
like whoa.
memorable.
They were like
Yeah,
woo.
and yeah, some people are really interested in adventure, right?
So yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they'll go to
Who
the
is it?
jungle and they'll set up a tent and get bitten by mosquitoes
They'll run
and
around.
stuff, or
Yeah, they'll.
run around in the a swamp or something, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, they might for a sense of adventure, right? Yeah.
for a sense of adventure. So I wouldn't, fun, yeah, right, but fun also encompasses a lot more than just like easy. And I think why am I mentioning all of this? Because I think I'm trying to compare it, right,
Mhm.
with the or contrast, right?
I don't know what
That
I don't know the difference between those two words. I'll be honest with you. I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
when
me
they used
either. So compare and contrast. Yeah,
you
that's authority figures also telling us that
that's they're telling
lexicon,
us
man.
they're like that's the SATs being like compare and contrast these two things, and you're like I think
Okay,
I
now
thought
compare it.
compare and contrast are the same exact thing except when you're yeah changing the contrast on
Yeah,
like a picture. You're like
changing contrast.
you're like
Yeah,
ooh this
right.
yeah yeah yeah
You're changing like I don't know, the extremity of it. How
yeah.
extreme it is. I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. They're the same word. When someone tells you compare things, I'm gonna compare them. I'm going to see the
That's it. Well,
differences
I
in the
think
two.
compare.
Right.
I only think compare. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm comparing this, adventurous fun, or this, um, yeah, I guess you could say the adventurous fun, with, I guess, the typical. Okay, so we could go into a lot with this, right? But a
Sure.
lot of people go and do tourism, right? Maybe after they've retired, right? So I mean, I understand there's a lot you can't do at that age. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But usually but even some young people, a lot of young people for that matter, when you travel, you go for a limited amount of time, right? And you stay in a safe area. You go on a guided tour with person who speaks English, or
Right.
who speaks
Yeah.
your, mother tongue,
Right.
and it's all very controlled,
Mhm.
tame,
Yeah.
and that's what you do.
Right.
Whereas other people, and I think expats also kind of have a little bit of this spirit in them also,
Mhm.
is to go and really see what it's like to live among a different culture, a different society for that
Right.
matter. Some are a little bit more adventurous, I would say, than others, right? So I'll give you a little bit of context about my situation, and please feel free to ask any questions to expand on these topics.
You got it.
I don't. Okay, so Peru has three regions, right? They have the coastal region, right, which is where Lima is. You have the Sierra region, which is the mountains. Normally, when you think of Machu Picchu, and right, the people with the traditional garments, the women with the braids and everything,
Oh,
right,
really?
llamas. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Sierra part.
Okay.
And then you have the jungle, which borders, right, like the lower part of Colombia and Brazil, right, the Amazon.
Mhm.
And those are the three Peruvian regions, and
Mm.
they're all three very different regions. The coast tends to be more developed, right,
Mhm.
because that's where the capital is.
Right.
The Sierra tends to be right. You have a distinct culture there also, more farming, rural kind of a agricultural culture, right?
Sure.
And then the jungle kind of might be a little bit of a mix of the two, but be a little bit more leaning toward right the agricultural culture also. But yeah, you certainly have a lot more exotic animals, and the food's different in all three regions also, right? So I'm trying to remember where I was going with this,
Okay.
right?
So here, this is where I'm gonna help you out with this. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
go for it.
now, first of all, so it's possible to be a citizen of two countries. Let's just start with that.
Okay.
It is. It is, right? But sometimes it
Okay,
isn't.
so
But sometimes it isn't,
it
right?
depends on what country. It
Because
depends on what country, right?
does
Okay, so
can I ask you this? Okay,
yeah, go for it.
is America the limiting factor here, or are the countries the limiting factor? Like, because America say, okay, you could be a dual citizen with any other country. Please send us the tax money. But it's the other countries that are like, I don't think so. You can't be a multiple citizen. I know for a fact that India does not allow dual citizenship, and it's on India's side that does that. So, what do you know?
Correct.
Well, yeah,
Right.
yeah, they do not. Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, and renouncing citizenship is kind of like a hard thing for some people when they come to America. For those in the
Really.
Indian community, which I know very slightly, but I could talk, but yeah, but from those from folks I have talked to, it that renunciation. I mean, it kind of hurt. You know what I mean? To renounce it, and I feel like I would joke with you, and I'd say, hey, Joe. He's gonna be a Peruvian citizen. He's not gonna be an American citizen anymore. And you say, no, John. I'm gonna be both. And you'd clarify that. Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's your home. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to
Of
get that out.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as long as I'm not forced or compelled, or was it? I mean, the laws are still on the books that yes, for both countries you can be a dual citizen.
Yeah.
There's no real problem there. Then I plan on keeping both of them, right?
Mm.
But to answer your question, right, there it depends on the country, right? And if you're
It
talking
depends
to
on the
India, right,
the other country, right? It doesn't depend on the U.S. It's the other countries. Yeah, that are
it's the other country.
they're
Yeah, the U.S. is entirely
delimiter.
okay with it.
Yeah, the delimiter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
generally recognize dual citizenship. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of
Globally, yeah.
problem there, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people do, right? Right. I mean, expats is not just like a very isolated phenomenon. Again, right?
Absolutely
There's
not.
a lot
That's
of
why
people who do it.
that's why there's a word for it.
Yeah.
There's websites dedicated to them, books dedicated to them. There's a lot out there, you know what I mean, for the person who wants to go out and experience the world that way. It's basically all an expat really means, from my understanding, is just someone who identifies as an American that lives abroad, right? Yeah.
Right. And I think it's also a good question whether or not I still identify as American. Even.
That's oh wow, asking yourself questions. I got two questions for you, right? So,
Sure.
okay, that's my question. you got me. You got me. You got me. I was gonna say something
Yeah,
stupid. I was like, oh, well, let's try a joke. Hey, are you a Patriots fan? Or that, and now you're not. See, that was a dumb joke, so I'm not gonna make that joke.
yeah. Actually, I don't like I don't like either kind of football, right? And that also produced a lot of culture shock in me because I'm not, I'm not an American football fan, nor am I a football fan, a soccer fan,
Same
right?
experience,
And
either country. Don't worry, the both of us had
yeah,
this same experience. You go there, you come back home. Everybody wants to watch football on Thanksgiving. You go
football,
there,
people
and
want to watch
everybody's like,
cricket,
it's
or
there's the World Cup. Everybody's got to watch, and you're like,
the
oh,
World Cup.
oh, can I read a book while you guys watch?
Yeah, no, I'm just in general not a sports person and
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
So,
a watcher.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, sports watcher.
So,
But
so
that's
yeah,
just
do
me,
you identify as an American now?
Yeah, no, absolutely, right. I
Mm.
certainly identify as an American. I'm certainly proud to be an American,
Wow,
in many respects,
that's a
right?
song too. Yeah.
And I mean, if okay, so we're talking about the if nations recognize dual citizenship,
Yeah. Yeah.
if the United States no longer recognized dual citizenship, I would need a lot of time to think about my next move, right? Is it would not be easy, right?
Ah.
To actually be able to decide that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Right.
maybe we should go into a little bit of why I'm here, also.
Sure. Yeah. 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 What would take
Yeah,
what
personally, the
what takes a
personal
person?
reason,
Sure. Yeah.
or
Sure. And we can
okay,
get like to the level we had a discussion about this before. We're not full time podcasters. We're not full time radio people. The two of us. We're not full time public figures. So this is our two
mm-hmm.
hours of fame, right?
2 hours of fame, yeah.
But we got to go back to our normal life. So as much detail as you feel is comfortable being out there in the world, right? And so, and
Yeah,
same, how I am with that, which is basically no personal info in the world.
you're right.
Period. Nobody can
Well,
know anything outside of what I do in these 2 hours.
outside of anything, right? Well, I'll give some things that I think would be relevant here, and
Yeah, yeah,
as
that'd be
much as I
great.
can, of course, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Touch on it.
yeah, so I mean, Peru was not just a random thing, right? Some people, and I certainly encourage all people who are interested in living and working outside of the United States to do so wherever they feel most comfortable or wherever
Yes.
they would like to.
Right.
But for me, Peru was not just a random country, right? And I don't know if you didn't tell by just looking at me and stuff, right? I am also Peruvian, right? I was
By by
born in Peru.
right.
Yeah, and I was adopted by an American family, right?
That's
A
correct.
very wonderful American family.
Beautiful family.
And
Yeah.
I, yeah, I was raised in North Jersey in the city of Clifton, but unfortunately, over the last many years, right? I was 13. I lost my mom, right,
Right.
to lung cancer, and when I was 21, I lost my dad to uh, it was like a heart attack, but it was
Yeah.
there were a lot of other things,
Right.
right?
Right.
So yes, no, I lost my parents, right?
Right.
And
Sadly.
at that time, right, at the time I first came back to Peru to
Right.
kind of like search for my roots, my biological family,
Of course.
right? I had just finished college the year before, right?
Right.
And that was kind of like my gap year, right?
Yeah.
Between undergraduate and graduate school, right? So
So.
I took advantage of the time that I had, right? And I came back to Peru. I learned Spanish,
Mhm.
and I came, right, the first time since I had been born, and I met the family that I could meet and everything. It wasn't so difficult because, right, so this is another thing. I don't know if I really want to get too much into adoption and adoption politics
Yeah,
here,
we could definitely
but
get into that another day. Yeah, that's a
another
good
day.
that's a good topic for another day. But
It's,
but it does.
it's a good topic.
Yes, it's a good place to
But
jump from.
yeah, but what I can say is the following, right?
Mhm.
For me, it wasn't so difficult to do this, right?
Right.
Some people think it's impossible. Some people think it's really an involved investigation. For me, I always had that information, right? I always had my mother's name, even the little town in the middle of nowhere, right, on legal documents, on record and stuff.
Right.
And it was just a matter of coming here, and going, and that's it, right? A lot of people don't have that, and it gets a lot more complicated
It does.
and stuff.
It does.
So, yeah. And yeah, I came here. I met people, and I didn't meet my sister, who I actually have the closest relationship to in that first trip. But right, but I did get her phone number, and then we got into contact. I guess like a month or two after I had come back that first time. She got a laptop, right, and we've been in contact ever since, right,
Mm,
since summer of 2013.
right.
And every just about every vacation from like graduate school, and also whenever I was doing something, just about every summer vacation I've come back, and then finally since 2016 I've been living here and
Hmm.
stuff, right? So there's a sense in which me as an expat, there's a little bit more to like personal reasons, right? I guess you could say. And again, I certainly encourage anybody who's interested in going and exploring the world to do so, right? But me
Sure.
for Peru, it's a little bit more personal,
Hmm.
right? It's a more personal type of experience, right?
Sure.
Catching up on lost time with biological family. And again, we can get adoption politics some other day, but
Yeah,
I
we have to
certainly
talk. We
think
have
it's
to talk about
something
it, I think, at some point. We should talk, but
at some point.
at some point,
It's
maybe.
something I
But
think.
we have to just find
Yeah,
out
go
if
ahead.
it's too controversial or not to talk about. But it's
I don't care. I don't know if I'm concerned if it's too controversial or not. I think it's
I don't
something
know if
that,
you're probably not
again,
concerned. I'm concerned, Joe. It's
okay.
it's my show, my show. Okay, it's not yours.
Well, the only thing I will say is I think it's an experience that
Right.
a lot of adopted children should do, and I don't, or a lot of adopted people should do, and I don't think anything necessarily means or entails that both sets of family can't get along. I think a person can get into a situation where they can have a good relationship with
Sure.
both their adoptive family and their biological family,
Right.
and you can get it to get along, and you can make it work for yourself, and the
Yes.
thing is about you being happy. But
Right.
again, we can
Again, but
expand on
again,
those
let's
ideas some other.
we're still it still sounds a little controversial, Joe. It still sounds like you're gonna somebody's gonna get angry. Remember, we're not full timers here. We're just having fun, and we're
Okay,
just having
so
fun broadcasting ourselves all over the internet.
uh,
So
that,
that's yeah. Sorry,
that's
were you
fine.
were you gonna say something else? I'm sorry. I was gonna ask something.
Am I going to say anything else? No, but we can certainly get back to the topic of
Sure.
what is it,
So
expatriatism.
so um, it's it's good that you laid out like why you came to what brought you there, and for you the personal reasons as to becoming an expat, because kind of in a way you're not a pure expat, right? In a way, right? You're kind of returning
Define pure expat. Define pure expat.
in that you're leaving your because typically like it's like you're leaving your home country, but you're kind of returning in a way, right? You're kind of returning in one way. In one way, you're the place you're born, right? Like you're not. They usually you call your hometown.
Mm,
You call your hometown. You
yeah.
don't usually call your hometown the hospital you're born in, especially in New Jersey, because there's so many towns so close to each other that you're usually not born in the town that you were raised in, right? You're usually born in a town that's maybe like 5 miles up the road or something, and so it's not like your birthplace technically, right? But
Right.
you're returning to your birthplace, so it's a little different in that way, right? And but you're still
Well,
technically an expatriate, right? But it's
mhm.
just interesting to think that you have you're kind of doing it for a reason that might be different than somebody who says, "Okay, I want a different experience. I want to go to Europe, and I want to live in Europe. I want to go in England, and I want to you know uh, have an English life where I watch the BBC
Right.
every day.
You have nothing to do with the country that you're going to, usually.
Maybe, right. Maybe there's some kind of emotional connection, but you have a very personal connection to this place, right? Because
Well,
you have
well,
genetic
what I would like to say
ties
about that,
as well.
yeah, but what I would like to say about that is I don't know if that necessarily makes things easier or more difficult, and I think that
I would
that's
say more difficult. I would think,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think we
Because
both
yeah,
know
there's an
that. Yeah.
element. Yeah, there's an element when you go to a place that you don't have any, real personal connection to, or you don't know anybody for that matter. this could also get into a lot of like politics of things, right? And I don't know if I really want to go into that also, but there's a sense in which you can get away with being an American, right? And you can you can kind of start anew, entirely anew.
Hmm.
But when you know people, right, and you have to reconnect, and also reconnect with people who you could have grown up with, had you
Right.
not grown up in the country that you were born in.
Right.
And also trying to navigate, what they're perceiving and what you're perceiving also as really close familial ties
Yeah.
that, with all the expectations that go along with it, and also navigating the whole culture. There's a sense in which, yeah, like you said, it can be a little more difficult than somebody that's just going to another country and, knows absolutely nothing of the culture, knows absolutely no one, right? You get away with being a beginner
Right,
and
right. Even
down
if they read a
here,
couple books about it
yeah,
and stuff like that, it's a little different than having adoption papers that say this is where your family's from, this is where this is from, these are the people that you're connected to. You have family here. It's different.
absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
But it's interesting
So,
though. It's still you still have a lot of parallels with people who do that with their lives. I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something
sure.
about that?
No, I mean, yeah, compare and contrast, right? So that's how I would contrast, right? Are the experience of an expat going to, I guess that's the right word, right?
Yeah.
To a new place that they have no connection to,
Right.
but to compare it, right? To make it, no, or not to compare it, but to make it, the similar, right? The similar things, right? In our
Hmm.
Venn diagram in the middle, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
it's it's I'm still like I didn't grow up here, right? I I didn't know the culture, the society, um, right? It was still very, very different, how people treat each other, what are things you can or can't do, and there's an element I did not know any of that either. So it
Hmm.
was getting accustomed to that too. Um, yeah, so that there's a sense in which I was also kind of going into this blindfolded, and then you learn a lot of things uh, as you go along, for sure.
What did so you did you is there anything that you learned that you would want that you're about to say right now, or is it like, oh, maybe this is a little much and we should, what do you, is there, what'd you learn? What'd you learn? What'd you learn, Joe?
Well, I learned Spanish.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, you did. We never said that.
I did.
You learned the native language, and correct me
It's not the native
if I'm wrong.
language.
It's the is it
It,
the official language of the country?
it's the official language of the country, but it's not the native language. There are 40-ish, right? 30 plus ish um,
Wow.
native languages here.
Are you
The biggest ones
serious?
being,
Jeez.
yeah, the biggest ones being Quechua and Aymara, right? Aymara's more so Bolivia, though, I believe, right? Or the southern part of Peru
What, can you
around
say
like
that
the
one more
Puno
time?
area. Quechua and Aymara.
Aymara. Okay.
Um, yeah, but Quechua was the language of the Incan Empire.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
there are still a lot of people, right,
Fascinating.
especially around Cusco,
Wow.
and then also my hometown of Huánuco, Peru, right, has right a large population of Quechua speakers, right, whose first language is actually Quechua, right,
Mm.
and some monolingual speakers also, right, that don't speak Spanish, right. So yeah, no, but Spanish is the official language, and I do know Spanish, but I don't know Quechua, right.
Any
So
words? Any
yeah.
words in Quechua? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, Wawa is baby, Walpa is like hen or chicken,
Wow.
right?
Cool.
Yeah, a few, right? Yeah. Uh, but yeah, that's one thing I learned. Other than that, I would say, I could also, again, I was talking about different regions, right? I was talking about the coast, the Sierra, and the jungle, and all those regions also have kind of like a different culture associated with them. So
Okay.
I'm living in the city, and I think this is what I wanted to say now that I'm remembering.
Great.
Um, yeah, so in the Sierra, it's very rural, very far away, right? If you go to those like little villages on the top of the mountains and stuff, which is where my family is from, actually, it's you're going to be very far away from what I guess you could say is like the city, the urban area. and it's going to be very different from living in the United States. I guess I can kind of leave it at that, right? Whereas if you live in the city, right, you're in an urban area and you've got really good logistics and everything with in terms of stocking stores and stuff. You have a lot more access to things. So okay, so what I was going to say was that I'm in the city, right? I'm in a metropolis. I'm in the Lima metropolitan area, but I'm actually in Callao. There is a legal and technical difference between Lima and
Okay,
Callao, but it
okay.
might as well be the metropolitan area, right?
Sure.
So I'm from North Jersey, and a lot of people who lived in North Jersey also worked in New York City.
Correct.
It's kind of a
Yes.
similar situation, right?
Many people do.
So Callao, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people who live in Callao go to work in Lima, right? And
Is there a
Callao
geographical
itself,
reason? I'm so sorry. Is there like a geographical reason for the separation? New Jersey, it's the Hudson. And some places this is developed as maybe there's a mountain or maybe there's something. Is there any kind of geographical phenomenon that is
not
kind of dividing the two, or it's just space? It's just space. They're really far. You're really far from center city of Lima. Is that it? Could it just be
it,
that?
it,
Yeah.
it's really just space, right? Well, Callao is the peninsula, right? It's the peninsula that comes out, right? So
Oh,
when
it
you
is
think the
geographically
airport,
different. Okay.
I guess so, right?
Yeah.
You have the
There's a difference.
airport.
There's no separation. There's no barrier, but there's a difference. Like you're saying that there's a peninsula, and I'm sorry, I'm about to cut you
Callao
off.
is the peninsula.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
Lima's right after the peninsula here.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha. It's kind of like Cape
yeah,
May, that little jet out of Cape May, right?
yeah,
And then you go in, and then there's you know there's Wildwood. You go in.
right,
Right.
exactly. Or that
Right.
tip in Massachusetts also,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Right. Right. Cape Cod.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cape Cod, yeah.
Right.
So yeah,
The,
a little like that. But the airport is actually even though it says Lima, it's actually in Callao.
right.
The main port of the country is not in Lima; it's actually in Callao, right? Hence the
Okay.
peninsula
So it's a
and
shipping.
everything.
It's a shipping area.
Um, it's a shipping area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I live there. And I wouldn't say it's anything like living out in the mountains. So if you are an expat, right, and
Sure.
you want to go, for example, teach English or something, and you want to go out to the mountains,
Mm-hmm.
I applaud you, right? Because the lifestyle is very different
Are you
from where it is
serious?
here. Here,
Yeah.
yeah, here I'm in a more, I guess you could say, developed area, right? Yeah, the Lima metropolitan area, and again, Callao. It's like this. This is where everything that comes into the country goes through, right?
Okay.
All of the international logistics and stuff. And you can go to malls. You might as well have been in New York or New Jersey. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's that's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I were living in the mountains or something, which some people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like in the Peace Corps, that kind of stuff,
Okay. Okay.
right? They're going to send you to those really rural areas and
Remote.
stuff.
Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
if you really want a good, speaker, right, at some point for like a real expat experience, that
Yeah.
would be an interesting person to talk to,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
I'm
Sure. Sure.
I'm living in a place that I can go to like I guess the Peruvian type of 7-Eleven. And I can get name brand stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. In the mountains, you can't.
So
In the mountains, you can't.
not really. No, it's pretty
Really?
far away. Yeah, it's pretty far away from things. I don't know how much of that I really want to get into.
Sure.
But
Whatever you want to
the
talk
only
about.
thing I
Yeah.
can
So yeah. Whatever you want to say.
the only thing I can say is, yeah, if there are expats who are really interested in doing that, right? I really applaud you, right? And I'd also like to extend a thank you to your work for having done that. Right? That's
Going
but
out
the
there.
lifestyle is very different
Very
and
different.
stuff. So
So,
yeah,
do they have electricity out there? Is it common, or is it like some people don't? Some people don't.
some people don't.
Whoa, that's wild. What about
Some
plumbing?
people don't have running water. No,
What?
yeah, exactly. No, no running water.
Yeah.
Depends.
Yeah, my mom didn't grow up with indoor plumbing and didn't grow up with electricity in her home until she was a teenager, which is insane to me. But
there are some parts of the world that are still like that. You see,
yeah.
okay, so that's the interesting part, right? So the first time I came back to Peru and everything, I stayed in Lima, right? And what I didn't know at the time was an upper class section of Lima. And I was very comfortable. I was getting that. I guess the first time, when I started talking, right, I'm talking about just like the tourist experience,
Hmm.
right? Going in a safe area with a guided tour and everything. That
Yeah.
that was my first experience here.
Yeah.
And then going and searching for the biological family and actually going out to the mountains and everything
Hmm.
and meeting the biological family
Yeah.
and seeing how they lived and everything, right?
Right.
It was a very different experience,
Oh,
to
was it?
say the least, and a very
Okay.
different, like, kind of eye-opening experience to kind of how the world is,
Uh-huh.
different, right, in different parts of the world,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have different lifestyle and different amenities that we kind of take for granted, luxuries.
we do. We
Um,
very much do.
yeah, these are all things that, um, yeah, yeah, like different. Just even when it comes to like the luxury of just the structure and the way things are built in like just your apartment or your house, in America is just, you think that's just normal, and it's not
We
necessarily just
do.
just normal. Not everybody has that. Like we think plumbing, electricity, but there's little things like, like how the walls are constructed or, and stuff like that. It's like yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, no, that everything, all like the level of development, like you said, how houses and things are constructed. Yeah, that's entirely the case, right? With the large majority of the world, some people don't even have roofs over their heads, right? It's just like tarps or little
Tarps,
plastic boards that are just,
tarps,
yeah,
tarps, plastic
tarps
boards. You've seen this?
or plastic boards.
You've seen these?
Yeah,
Both those? You've seen
uh,
plastic boards as roofs. You've seen tarps as roofs.
tarps. Sometimes it's hay, right? In like the jungle
Hay?
areas, right? Yeah, but it's pretty good. It's pretty well built, right? I think that's how the native populations used to build things, right? And they did pretty good by themselves, right? In terms of level of development, but that's not something we'll get into really, right?
No, no,
But
but it
there's
is
a certain
something to
sense
talk
in
about.
which, yeah, they had, yeah, had,
Yeah.
had it together and everything, right?
Wow.
But besides
So,
that,
yeah.
in the Sierra, you have adobe houses, right? Which are essentially clay houses, right? They make it out of the land and they turn it into like a type of clay, right? And then you build a house out of that. But yeah, a lot of DIY building for sure.
Hmm.
As opposed to, yeah, of course, the United States, you have housing, you've got laws, right? Architects and builders, they all have to
Code.
comply with a lot of laws. I'm sure they have those
Codes,
too,
yeah.
but I don't know. I don't, it's kind of hard to regulate things,
Right.
I think, for many reasons, but um, how much people comply with whatever laws there are, it's certainly not to the extent that it is in the United States, for example, right?
So,
Or in a developed country.
so, I wanted to just not leave out the fact that you went. I remember when you left here, right? That one of the first. No, this is the second time you left to go to Peru, because you had gone to Peru several times, like every year since like 2013, correct? And then the second time you went, like maybe in 2014, you went and you did a 6 month long stint where you just dove in headfirst and took a language program, and you got to fluency, an immersion program. Um, that's not to say that you didn't have anything kind of knowledge of Spanish before you went, but because you did take 4 years of it in high school at least, and then some maybe in middle school as well, right?
No,
But
like 2 years middle school, a little bit in elementary school.
how many years in high
It
school?
never stuck.
How many years in high school?
Two.
Only two.
I only took two. I only took two levels. Yeah, and
Wow,
I didn't.
wow.
Same thing in college, and I didn't do well. Right. Um, you really have to have some reason to want to learn languages
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff,
a it's
right?
it's a it's an undertaking, a true undertaking. It's not like something I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll just
I also
casually
had
learn it.
time.
It's not. Even
Yeah.
guitar is probably less immersive. You know what I mean? Like, I'll learn a couple chords.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's not certainly not easy, but
yeah,
again, speaking of the gap year, right? I had time. I could just do that full time, and That's I
Oh,
wouldn't
you
say
did that with the
languages are
gap
hard.
year. You did that with your gap year to your masters, right? Correct. I'm not getting that
Yep,
wrong. Okay, thank you.
correct. Yep. So it's not that languages are hard. They just take a lot of time, and
They take
after
time.
putting so much yeah time into things, a lot of people get I guess fed up, right, or
Sure.
disenchanted, right,
I have many
with it.
times. Yeah, many times. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's entirely normal, right? It happens to a lot of people. But yeah, you really have to put a lot of time into it. So yeah, no, that's what I did. No, I'm sorry, you were going to ask another question.
No, it's fine. I forgot too. I'm not too smart.
Neither am I.
It's we're just simple guys. But yeah, no, it's nice to be on here. Like, it's nice that like to talk to you about this stuff, and you know, you know, where's I even going? Point being, so you learned that you went through and you got the language done, right? Could you imagine if you didn't though? That would be so difficult.
Right.
What would
If
have happened?
I
What would have happened if you just went in head first? You're like, I'm not gonna learn it. I'm just gonna go about it. What do you think would have happened?
well, and I'm going to try and be as diplomatic with this next commentary. Is that
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
always
Let's go.
yeah
Let's go with that. Let's go with that. Yeah.
you always want to be careful in any new country that you can
Let's talk
go
about Peru
into.
specifically. Let's talk about your country, okay? Let's not talk about
I
worldwide. No,
am.
no, 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 no. Watch
Uh,
out. Watch out.
no,
Watch out.
I am.
Be a good
And
Joe. Don't ruin this for me, please.
so you go to a country that you don't know that you go somewhere you don't know the language and everything. There's a lot of things that can happen with the local population in terms of you not knowing. There's always going to be a little bit of power that they're going to have over you. Um, it's good to be independent, in
You're also
these
rather than dependent on those who speak the language. Gotcha.
rather than dependent on those who speak the language, right? It's certainly a recommendation I would give to anybody. Yeah, so
How well would
to not
would
get
an English
taken
speaker
advantage
do
of.
in Peru? I'm sorry, you said something.
How
How well would an English
to
speaker
not
do in Peru? Like just like if I went and just started walking around and let's pretend I didn't know any like similar language as like Italian. Like I just was like nothing. I was just like, hey, what's up? I could. I mean, I have a feeling I'm gonna be spending a lot more money for stuff, but yeah,
you hit the nail on the head. You probably would, and
yeah.
that's just, I guess, kind of how the power structures are. If you're coming from a developed country and going to a country that's still developing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I would just really recommend you learn the language and stuff. Although my experience as an adoptee and having family here, I guess that's a sense in which it was a little easier because you had family that was
Built
looking
in.
out for you
Hmm.
and everything, right? You know, uh, having genuine concern at some points it was like a lot and everything. I guess you could interpret it as a little much because they're just so worried about you and getting
Hmm.
taken advantage of and stuff, right? But yeah, there's in some senses, I guess you could say that my expatriate experience, in that regard, was a little bit easier,
Sure.
right, than just like the random expat, right, in a random country. So yeah.
Wonderful. So we did an hour of this, which was wow. Thank you for doing an hour of this with me, talking about this expat subject. Is there anything we didn't get to cover that you wanted to talk about today?
I, I think there's quite a lot for you. I mean, we could
Yeah.
keep going with this topic.
Hey, is
Are
there
there any
something?
last questions?
No, no,
Yeah.
no. There's something you wanted to say. Go ahead, say it. Except if it gets
Um,
gets me in trouble, don't say it. Then don't say it.
well, the only thing I can say is, again, right, with the stages in life and everything, right?
Yeah.
A lot of countries, especially developing countries, are always going to need English as a second language, right? And whether you are an adoptee or somebody who wants like a career change or just wants to go out and live an adventurous lifestyle, that's option's always going to be on the
Yeah, it
table.
is, right? It's like a really good option is to be able to teach English. That's what a lot of folks do to I remember folks who were considering the JET program to go to Japan and teach English there. And there's a lot of incentives a lot of countries have whose governments kind of put money into that sort of thing, like build in incentives to teach English in their country. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it would be one way or another, it's going to be a good experience, right? So don't think it's off the board, right? Off the table.
Is there a government push to learn English across the country, like as in like is there money funneled into that whole process? Because I think in other countries there may be, in certain parts of Asia. I think I could be speaking terms to not understanding, so forgive me if I'm completely wrong, people.
Right.
But I think that
I
there is.
I can yeah, I can give you the answer that I know, right?
Sure. What do
In
we know?
terms of in terms of funneling money, right? I mean, it all depends on what you mean by funneling money, right? Is there a serious initiative? Well, I'll put it to you this way: everybody who studies an undergraduate degree has to take a number of courses of English. I think
Oh,
at
really?
least beginner, yeah,
Undergraduate? You're talking about
complete
college? At the college level, they have to take?
at the
That's a
college level.
wow.
Yep, it has to be done. You can either take it if your school happens to have a language department, you can take it with them. If they don't, you have to go to an external institute that specializes in English, which is what I was working for. Right,
Yeah.
and I didn't really talk about my job, did I? But we can
Yeah, we can.
um,
Yeah.
talk about that, some other time. But
Sure.
just to answer the question, right? You yeah, so you have to take at least basic level, I believe. But for some masters and doctorate, right, degrees, you actually have to have intermediate completed, right, by whatever standard they're judging it as, right. Sometimes it could be like an international exam, in
Hmm.
which case you really have to know the language, or it could be just complete the courses, right? Not necessarily meaning you have to have the level, but just complete the courses. And that's part of the reason why I'm learning German now. I'm actually learning German, for that very reason. And then there's also what do you call it? So there's that requirement now, and I believe that is a governmental requirement that they have on all the universities. And now, in terms of funneling money into that, that's a good question because I think it's just a requirement, right? You just have to do it. If you're studying, you assume that you're working on your own to support yourself while you're studying. You have to do that, right? So you would have to pay for it.
Do they teach uh is it common is it English taught as a second language as a in middle schools and elementary
Good
and high
question.
school?
Very good question. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's also a core requirement in the elementary schools and high
Sure.
schools and state schools. But here's the thing, okay, and here's like the difficulty with that
Okay, here's
is
the
that
rub.
right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, here go ahead, continue. Don't ignore me.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
yeah. It's uh, it, in Lima. I don't think there's really a shortage of English teachers, right? Available, right? But when you get to the more rural areas, as I was kind of like, talking about,
Alluding to, yeah.
and how they're very different from
Yeah.
Lima, I think there is a little bit of a governmental push and a little bit of funneling money to try to get people to go out to those more rural areas and do so. And yeah, I think you can earn, kind of a little bit more because the number of people that are, able to or interested in those kinds of jobs, there's not nearly as many as there would be in Lima, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's also, and then in general, pedagogy is something that they're still kind of like getting getting to. There are a lot of English teachers, I think, who all you have to do is know English, right?
Mm.
But in terms of actually being able to teach it, right, is another topic that I think right they're still trying to like evaluate and improve. I guess you can
Right.
say, right? The teaching aspect. But yeah, no, That's
would
what I know
would
in
you ever
terms of the
teach in a
policy.
teach in an elementary school or teach in a high school or teach at the undergraduate level, or because you teach kind of business, right? Student.
Okay.
Okay, explain it to me.
Right.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So I've actually taught all those levels that you just mentioned.
Oh
What
wow, I
what
didn't know
was
that.
I? Yeah, what was I doing? I was working for a company, a private company that offered classes to basically anybody who wanted classes in house, right? That you
Hmm.
would actually go to the location. Now the location, yeah, I mean, was it designed more for big business, right? Executives in a conference room? Yes, but it could really be anybody for any level and stuff. So if a private school hired us, for example,
Hmm.
we would also do our children's program, our adolescent program, or our young adult program there also. So it didn't really, yeah, we were designed right for the business stuff, but we could really go anywhere and teach any program. We were an extension of, right, I guess, because we also have buildings, right, schools that just have teachers that just go to one building and stuff, whereas we traveled all over the city,
Hmm.
um, and gave classes wherever they wanted us to give classes, essentially.
So, but how could you if you're traveling all the time, how could you consistently teach like an elementary school class? Are you just doing one-offs?
Um, I'm sorry, I'm not too sure if I understand the
You're
question.
saying you taught every single level, but you're are you traveling across the country to teach elementary school one day, and then you don't show then they get some other teacher another day? That's what I don't understand. Like you're not an elementary school
No,
teacher.
I exactly. I would teach right one class, which would be one particular hour during the day and
Really?
everything, right? Every
Okay.
single day, right? Whenever we had classes and
Okay.
stuff. But then that would only be one class, right? Then I would go to another part of the city, right? It was always within the city, so I could always go,
Yeah, bounce
but it's
around.
just yeah, it's not like another part of the country. That would be very difficult. Although there were some of those opportunities, but I
That
didn't
were
take
you
them,
didn't take them.
right?
No, no,
Because
but like
yeah,
because I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I live here with my family, right?
Right.
I'm not going to be going halfway across the country
So,
to teach, right? Yeah.
but when it comes to like you had like an entire year of one class of an elementary school, like, and you've taught like that class every.
However long it was. Not okay, not a whole year. We have our own program with our own semesters, I guess you could say,
But you talked like
right?
a semester long, like you had a long period. You didn't just go to a school and showed up one day and then, okay, I showed up for 1 hour. I did 1 hour this week here. I'm never gonna show up again. I'm gonna like you
No,
finished out
it
a
was
semester
regular.
with kids, like maybe with 10-year-olds with this, and then you do maybe 20-year-olds or
No,
college students or
what
professionals.
we were assigned by the class per a semester,
Okay,
right? Could be basic 1 through 10, right?
so
So I was assigned basic one, and I would go throughout the duration of that basic one, for example, right, class. And then when that's finished, they either decide to keep me there, right? It was administrative staff that would decide those things to either keep me there or send me somewhere else, right? Or maybe we switch the teachers up, right?
mhm,
But yeah, I would stay for our curriculum, right? Our semesters. I would stay for that duration. That could only
gotcha.
be at tops 4 weeks,
So I don't want
right?
to get too
And
deep
then you
into this. I want to just make sure that we. So basically, you're able to have a job as an expat with the skill that you developed in America of English itself, right? Because you don't really
correct.
you don't really use your Spanish, right, when you're teaching. You just speak
I don't
English.
use my Spanish when I'm teaching, although you can't expect every administrative area in every institute to speak English.
Right.
I think that would have
Right. So it's
been
good
very
you it's
difficult.
yeah, it's good you
Yeah,
know it. Yeah.
if
But
I
I'm sure
didn't
that
know. Yeah,
I bet there's some people who don't know that much Spanish that it's a little harder for.
there are some people who worked for the institute I worked for that did not know Spanish. I don't know,
Really?
but they didn't work in my department. I don't know
Yeah, but I
how they
imagine it's more
managed that.
difficult, right? Because like you're going into places where, right? But in the classroom
Mhm.
setting, you don't speak it, right? So it's nice
No,
to be an expat, and Are you part of any kind of expat community in Peru? Do you talk?
No,
No.
that's the thing. Okay, so that brings, another interesting point, in terms of being here with the family and everything, right? With my biological family, I haven't thought of that. Although I'm starting to kind of warm up to the idea of maybe becoming part of an expat community of, like, a group of friends that I can see on a regular basis that
Yeah.
are from America, right?
I'm sure you just hop on
I've gone
Facebook and there's a
to
group for it. Yeah.
I'm sure there is,
Yeah.
right? But I've hung out with, tourists from,
Tourists.
America and stuff,
That's one thing.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of fun, right? But until now, I haven't been a part of an expat community. So I think that that's something me and my biological family, having biological family, certainly, I don't want to say kept me from doing that, but
No,
there
no,
was
but
no
it's
need,
kind of
you know.
satisfied that need. But so it did keep you in a way,
Yeah,
like, cause it's like they didn't stop you necessarily, but you didn't find
no.
out like, oh man, I'm really lonely out here. Like maybe if I was a part of an expat community, I would find that. And I'm because I just assume there
Did I
is
say I
actually.
was lonely?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You want to talk?
Well,
Is it lonely being an expat? Is it? Is it like we can talk about it at a very high level? Is it lonely a little bit? A little bit?
Um, yeah, I mean, I miss hanging out with you, right, and my friends, of course, right.
Yes.
And I think that that's normal and stuff, in person. But I've since the beginning of this whole coronavirus crisis, right, we've all been kind of in
Talking a lot
contact
more. It's
and
probably
doing
more than we would normally. Yeah, yeah,
more than we would even
yeah, because
normally, right?
you're getting to hang out with us when we're hanging out. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
not that I have that many friends at all. So, but that's for another
so,
conversation.
of
But
course.
but
So
but yeah, 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 yeah. It's like you're able to talk to us a lot more. But usually, yeah, you miss hanging out, and but you're not really that. You don't feel like you get you. I mean, you pick up the phone a lot. That's a really good thing that you do. You call people a lot, and that's a way that you kind of stave off this. Like that's how you're able to get kind of the English out of you. You're able to talk English other than
sure,
in your classes, because you don't really get to talk English that much at home, right? I'm assuming.
right.
um, right? And so you're able to call me, you're able to call your friends, you're able to call people, call. You pick up the phone. You're a very good phone picker upper, and that's good. And I think that's actually an important skill to have. So we covered money, we covered nationality, we covered making money. You mean your English teaching. Always a good field to jump into. Like no matter what, you can do it, right? For the most part, if you're in a non-English speaking country. Um, uh, and then now we're covering like just connection and community and all that stuff outside, and just like loneliness and friendship and all that stuff. And you're getting a lot out of being there, and I'm sure you made friends there, but like there's some people who may not know what it was, who just don't have that common ground of being from the United States. And maybe there's something in the United there's things that we think about that you want to talk about that you maybe they have no relation to, and maybe they would want to hear about it, but you want to talk to someone sometimes that has some kind of understanding of what it is, like what Jersey diners are like on a Saturday night, and just wanting
Right.
to think about that. So you kind of get
Yeah,
that, and I think that's the third way you do this expat thing really well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So you bring up a good point, right? In terms of finding people that you can relate to. So some of my friends, I've noticed that I do have. I've been able to make friends here, right?
I'm glad.
Uh, one of them also grew up. He's a full-on Peruvian and stuff. Wasn't adopted, but he grew up in Georgia, right, in Atlanta.
Wow, that's so
And
cool.
yeah, and I mean we get along because I mean we're both American and stuff, right?
Mhm.
And then another friend who travels a lot and knows English fluently and stuff. So, and we get along very well also, right? Yeah, there's a certain sense in which, yeah, people who, know other countries can certainly relate to you a little bit more. Um, then I have some friends who are just, who have never traveled before either, and that's okay, right? But yeah, there's certainly a sense in which, yeah, I think the expat community sounds like it'd be fun. It sounds like something worth looking into, right?
Yeah, that's
For
funny.
sure.
It's funny how that kind of comes out of like having a discussion where we kind of focus on this sort of thing, and I think that's kind of
Yeah,
the use in doing this sort of thing, like a just a
sure.
thing where
Yeah,
we
we
just
learn
focus on
new
a
things all
topic,
the time.
right? Yeah, it's just like we usually when we're talking, we're bouncing off topic to topic, you know what I mean, and we're unfocused. We're just trying to do this or that and update each other, but we don't really. This is really the chance to kind of delve in and kind of reflect on some of those things on one thing really, but
On
I
one,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, well, on one idea, right, and just kind of
Well,
playing
I
with it
hope
for a
I've
bit.
been,
Yeah,
of course, right, and I hope I've been able to touch upon right a lot of points about being an expat. I
yeah,
really kind of want to go into the idea of also, life and everything, and the
yeah,
sequence of life
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I was gonna
Yeah,
cut it, but like for let's keep going. You want to talk about sequence? Let's talk about sequence of life. That's what kind
the
of what
sequence
happened.
of
That
life.
happened with Dave, right? That happened with Dave. We talked about sequence of life, and that's
I
kind
know,
of
absolutely,
yeah. It's
right.
so funny that you're talking about that now too, because it kind of is all related. Yeah,
It's kind of all related, most
yeah,
certainly, and I think the expat experience, right, is certainly related to that too, because I think one important idea is that when I, lost my parents and I finished my
right,
education and everything, there's certain like expectation that I was going to remain in the United States, right, and get a job and, um, right, yeah, just kind of, do things on my own and everything. And I didn't think that that was something for me at the time, right? There was an opportunity, right? I didn't have to stay in one place or another, right?
hmm
Um, and I feel like a lot of people kind of get caught up with a lot of expectations in life
oh,
and
so
stuff,
many
right?
expectations, so many expectations.
So many
Oh my gosh, yeah,
expectations, right?
yeah. Expectations
I
will
like get a
can
job
dictate your
here,
life. Yeah,
yeah. And as long as you can, right? And yeah, as long as you can, and you're willing to assume a lot of consequences and responsibilities and stuff, right? So one of the consequences here is I'm not really contributing to a retirement fund,
hmm
right? But I'm also okay, right, in terms of my savings.
hmm
So it's not really something, you know, earning a lot is not really a priority right now, right? So
hmm
I can be a little bit more idealistic in terms of how I choose my sequence of life and stuff. So, right, I don't want to discredit people who don't really have a lot of options, right, in life
right,
and stuff, and they can't do certain things. I'd like to promote the idea of becoming an expat, following your dreams, doing whatever you want in life, but I also recognize and yeah, I certainly recognize people who don't have many other options in life, for
right,
that matter. But if you most certain, I also think there's a sense in which a lot of people can, even if they think that they can't. Also,
hmm
and I'm not saying it's everybody, right? So I don't want to get too controversial, but you know, the only thing you have to know about going to another country is that
hmm
um, for the United States, if you want to maintain your United States citizenship, you have to pay taxes, right? Or you declare your foreign income on your taxes and stuff.
hmm
Um, it could, depending on how things go, it could cost you. So you at least want to be able to pay for that, and yeah, you want to have a backup plan at all time. You want to know that you're not going to be making a lot of money, right? It's all going to be for idealistic purposes and
hmm
stuff.
mm
And it's not to say that you can't, I don't know with the money that I'm making down here, I would be able to do any, travel a lot, for example, or it's certainly it's not about what do you call it? It's not about being lucrative down here, right? It's
right,
about just kind of it's a little bit more subsistence in one respect, but also getting the cultural reward in another respect and
mm
stuff. But I would certainly encourage a lot of people to consider it because I think the cultural reward is something a lot more rewarding or satisfying, right, than just kind of going through, a pre-planned sequence of life, right?
sure.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think my idea fizzles out there. But
That's
yeah,
okay. No, no, that's okay. We all fizzle out. It's hard. Doing this is hard. This is very hard. This is not easy. This is not an easy thing to
it's not
talk about.
easy.
It's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Yeah, but I don't
Yeah.
mind sharing what I think or feel and stuff.
Yeah.
But
That's
I think that's the best I can do
No, you
in
did a
terms
great
of
job. You did a wonderful job.
yeah.
I wanted to touch on I wanted to just slow you down for a second and just think about um something here. Now, what was I gonna say? No, where was I? You talked about just now. You said that it's not easy sequence, right? So some people, like I studied abroad. I went to New Zealand. It was really fun. Blah blah blah. That was great, and it was a really, whew, that was an experience that definitely has left a mark on my life for the rest of my life. And you studied abroad as well, um, in England, and I was, I got to live abroad, and I was on my own, and luckily I was in an English speaking country. I mean, that was on purpose because I was probably too scared to go to a country where I didn't know the language um, and all of that. But um, it was it was like that. That's kind of built in though. You know what I mean? It's like oh, the study abroad. It's a semester. It's kind of like set. You go in and then you leave, and it was an opportunity, and I think that people should at least try that. I think because that was, for me, that was really really rewarding to be gone for an entire semester, and I would say my favorite part of my college experience was being gone for that year. Now,
Absolutely.
like there are in some ways constructs, right? Like you could say like, hey, like I need to go and not do a gap year, and I need to go straight into college, and like I could talk about saying that these are all things that society or family said I have to live life this way, but the truth is that we're all we're all humans with um what is it called? You're the philosopher. Agency, and
Mhm.
as people with agency, you can think about things, and you could think about things differently, and you could say, hmm, maybe not this way. But I'll tell you this though, Joe. To be fair to my younger self, or to be fair to anybody's younger self about trying
Of
something
course.
different like this, it's not, you were kind of given this idea because you were kind of like more like it was slammed into you where you're like, whoa, my life is completely different. I've lost some important loved ones in my life. I lost my parents. This is really hard. What else can I do? And that kind of gave you this, like, made you think out of the box as to ways you could live your life. Now, a lot of us are not, we have the luxury of having our families around, or having our friends around, or anything like that, and so we're never we don't we're probably like, we don't think, oh, let's go ahead and do this, and because do you know the question is like, wow, this is kind of a hard question. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. You could just tell me, John, turn it off, turn that off, take that hat off, and get out of here. um, do you think that that you would have maybe not done this if things were different
If my
family wise? And
parents were still alive.
yeah, that's it.
Um,
There you go.
right.
You said it.
So I mean,
Okay.
this can also get into a little bit of adoption politics, right? Which I'm
Oh
happy
no!
to go into.
Oh no! 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 Not
So
today. But yeah, what do you think? You think you would have? You think you would have?
personally, right,
Personally, yeah, because you had a life path that was kind of defined before you left. For you, you were thinking
right,
about becoming a
absolutely,
lawyer and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, that thing.
Thinking about it. Thinking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It wasn't a hard and set thing. It was just like a thought of. It was a thought.
of course, yeah. There's a certain sense in which I think, yeah, I don't know if I would have done this. I don't think I would have done this
Right.
if my parents were still alive, right?
Right.
Now I'd say losing was an only child, right, in the United States, and
Mhm.
losing your second parent and everything, and having family that lives all over the United States,
Yeah,
right?
far away.
It's there you lose a sense of an immediate family, right?
You
And
do.
there's a sense in which I wanted that immediate family again.
Of course.
But yeah, no, I have no problem talking about this, right, or expressing this. Yeah, and it's nice to have an immediate family again,
Jeez.
and this again not to say that I feel any different about my family in the United States, right? Every time I go, when I can go, I meet up with them, I stay with them, and yeah, I mean, we're still family, right? I still have my name, right? I'm still, uh, I'm Joseph, right? And
Right.
my last name and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
I'm still the same person.
Yes.
I still have my American nationality.
Right.
Right? There's no sense in which undoing my adoption. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to, and I never will. Right? I don't see this really changing at any point in time.
Mm.
Legally, I'm not even related to any down here. Right? So, um,
Legally.
if I ever have any savings, yeah, if I ever have any savings and I die, for example, right, it's not go to anybody down, right?
Yeah.
It's
We're having
because you're
some
just
connection issues
family.
right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Continue. Go continue though. It's just kicked in now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. No. But I think there's also a sense in which I don't know how things would have gone, right? If my parents were still alive, right? So there's always that sense in which you wonder if, um, right, people would get along or if people would get hurt, right? Again, we're getting into a little bit of adoption politics, right?
Oh no 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 no
How
no
the
no
parents would feel.
no 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 no. We should cut. We should cut now while we're ahead. It's just interesting to think like
Yeah,
to think about the idea that like some people uh um are confronted with the idea or the to do this and some people aren't, and everybody has their own different reason for doing it, but it's always interesting to change where you live. Even any kind of
really,
move is interesting, right? Because
right.
people move for reasons, and while it's definitely easier in a sense to always stay where you are, easier in that you don't have to move physically, you know what I mean, but like as a person, like it's always easier to be staying sitting down rather than going and doing the dishes like I'm supposed to. But it's easier. It's easier
Yeah,
to do stuff like it's easier to always stay where you are. It's easier in a sense. It hurts more in some ways. It hurts you in the long term, but it's always easier to stay where you are.
of
Um,
course.
yeah, and sometimes
You know,
it's nice.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, it's just nice to be able to say like, oh, I had this horrible thing happen to me, and I used it as an opportunity to push myself out of my comfort zone um, and experience life
Yeah,
in a different way and experience
and I'm
because
all
go
I'm happy about it, right? I'm
yeah
obviously not happy that I don't have an immediate family anymore, right, in the United States. But
right
I'm certainly happy that I have the opportunity and
yeah
to live with my sister. And I think the only thing I can say, right, what I was going to say regarding adoption politics, the only thing I can say is I'm happy there's no conflict here. I can live with my biological family and know that this is the current family situation and stuff, and
mm.
you know,
Yeah, I'm
and
glad I'm
those are
glad.
the only four people I report to, right? I mean,
What was that? What was that last part?
and these are the only people like I interact with on a regular basis, right?
Right,
So,
right. You have them, especially
you
during a quarantine situation like this. Like, you know, some people don't have many. Some people are holed up in an apartment alone,
some
and
people are entirely alone,
entirely alone, and some people are alone even outside of quarantine, and that's a really big problem in the world, in America, in a lot of places, and it's really sad because even me, I mean, I don't. Frankly, I don't really talk to many people, but
uh,
so it's always good to have immediate people that care about you and love you and stuff. Um, so I just wanted to, so yeah, it's really interesting, and I think that things. It's. I think you truly made, like, that's the what they always say, make lemons out of lemonade out of lemons. How did I mess that up? That's so dumb.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how that. I don't know a lot of these phrases. I wish I knew more of these phrases. I have a friend who knows more of these phrases, but
Oh,
I don't.
no,
Yeah,
no, no, no.
I wish
Uh,
I knew more.
yeah, I'm not so good with them either. They say to do that, and I think you did, and I think and I think that's what's really interesting about all of this, and that's why I think it's helpful for people to understand, because I think we were talking the other day about how it's easily misunderstood to do what you're doing, and I think that I possibly didn't even understand it completely, and I could probably admit that for myself, that I didn't understand it, and I could go as far as to say I was saddened by it, and um, by not having my friend here, but like, like, not in a way like I want to control you and stop you. That's not how I feel, but in a way
I
of
feel
just,
like I felt the same way when you moved down
right,
south.
right.
Right.
When I moved
Um,
300 miles and you moved 3,000 miles, it's a little different.
it's a little different, right? But I felt a similar way. You know.
I don't think it's the same. It's similar. It's very different. It's you were able to drive to me. I'm not able to drive to you. You see what I'm saying? That's different.
I feel like for that same friend though that I just mentioned, right? It's there's a sense in which leaving geography, right?
Sure.
Those proximities certainly does something to the relationship, right?
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
think it has to be necessarily
but
bad.
I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough in a way, and I think people misunderstand it, right? For for
of
me,
course.
I was always told to, in it's commonplace in my kind of circle of understanding things. Like, I mean, I didn't really move. I've since I was 18, I haven't really, until 2013, I haven't really lived in New Jersey. I left New
Mhm.
Jersey a long time ago, and I haven't permanently lived here for a really, really long time. I never have. I didn't have a home here technically, um,
Sure.
for all those years. So I never really. I moved
Right.
there, but I didn't really have a home here. You know what I mean? But in that way, maybe that's how you felt, that you lost your home here, like in a different way. You lost your home here, and you wanted to go home, and that is home. You know, so that's in that way
Yeah.
you build.
There's a sense in which this has become, a second home, maybe even a first home,
Right,
right?
yeah, yeah. Primary home, yeah, like just home. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said before, right, when I was talking about the different regions, it's not that bad to live here, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, um, yeah, it's fine, and you go outside, you feel kind of safe. You can go. You've got a lot of different places you can get really good food.
Hmm.
You got a movie theater, a supermarket, everything that you would think that you would have in America and
Right.
stuff, right? Some people, especially in America, right? They think that you're going to the middle of nowhere,
Yeah, that's
with
true.
no
Yeah.
kinds of amenities, and that's really not how it is. And I would say in a lot of the urban cities in Peru, that's kind of how it is, right? It's going to be like living in a city, you know. It's just the more rural areas that might be
Yeah, different.
drastically different.
So you
Yeah,
say living in urban Lima is like almost like being in New York City
there are some similarities.
in the sense that
It's
what
still
in
different.
in access
You
to
know,
things. Maybe it's like
in
suburbia. It's
access to things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like maybe it's
Yeah,
more like suburbia
for sure.
in terms of like what you have access to in like New Jersey suburbia, or like American suburbia, like what you have access to, all different kinds of food, a movie theater, a mall.
For sure.
Right.
Yep, it's all there.
Right. It's all there. Yeah, no, it's do you feel like um you when you come back, is there any culture shock to being back here when you visit?
Um, a little bit. I think it's gotten to that point after having been down here for so long. I feel like yeah, there's a little bit. Like now I'm used to all these like roads that are built a certain way. or that look a certain way. When I'm coming down from, in the plane, right, and I'm looking at the land below, and I see this real intricate civil engineering and everything,
Yeah.
and these, huge highways and stuff. I'm like, why do I not remember this? Or maybe I just forgot that this was even here and everything. And being able to walk around at night and, be okay and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, culture shock, but in a good way, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
When I
yeah,
come
yeah.
back,
Yeah, it's just
you
like,
know,
whoa, this is crazy. Do you feel like when you come back, do you feel like a part of you is satisfied, but then another part of you is like, all right, it's time to head back. I need to go home. Or is it like
I think,
in both ways? Yeah. That's
uh, I think I would need a little bit of time to kind of like sit on this question a little bit.
sure,
Um,
sure.
the thing about America, right? And I don't know if we want to get into this now. Um, it's certainly like it's developed. It's tranquil, right? Quiet and everything. But there's a sense in which yeah, my family's down here also. Uh, and then there's also like an element, right? There's because there are a lot of Hispanic people, Peruvians, Mexicans, all types of people that I feel like might kind of like disagree with me, right? Because yeah, they live in the United States and their families are in the country, but they also know that the United States is a land of opportunity for like work and everything, right? And I feel like I'm kind of in a privileged position, right? Right. One, I can kind of come in back and forth if I want to,
Mhm.
and stuff. And I've made a decision which a lot of people wouldn't make. I feel like because I have an American passport, right? I decided to come down here and live and work. And I feel like there's a lot of people, right, especially within the immigrant community, who probably wouldn't agree with me. Although then again, some might, right? Some might understand, like, that family is important also. So it's a very different kind of experience to the immigrant experience. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, uh, I would say because my family's here, right? I could miss it. Um, but also, America is kind of cutthroat with its whole labor system, also, right? And unless you really have like a stable thing, right, gig, I guess you could say, right, a job for that matter, in the United States, it can be kind of a gloomy place, I think, right?
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, the labor market is yes. Yes, there are things. There are things. Can't
There are
discuss them.
things,
There
right?
are things. There are things I cannot.
There are
We're not. Yeah. I'm no. Nope. Yeah. Nope.
things.
Joe, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you going ahead and taking your time to talk about this. I hope it felt like you were able to get across at least the big ideas of expatriate life and what it means to be an expatriate, and you feel that way. But
Do it and don't think twice, right?
okay,
Don't think, just do.
don't think, just do. Okay, I don't know.